Welcome to Marketplace Tech Bytes. It's our weekly roundup of some of the big stories in tech and maybe some you missed. I'm Meghan McCarty, Carino. This week, we gotta talk about the signal leak of the national security plans that has Trump officials in the hot seat. Plus, what is the future of 23andMe and all that genetic data? And are AI chatbots beating Google at its own search game? Here to discuss all that is our regular contributor, Joanna Stern of the Wall Street Journal. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And of course, we got to start things off with our bite of the week. This is a number that gives us some insight into the week in tech. Joanna, what number do we need to know this week?
I'm using something from my column from this week, which we're going to talk about, which is 53% of people are planning to use generative AI this year for shopping. And this was according to a survey from Adobe, where they have been looking at trends of where people are using generative AI for search. And turns out people are using it for shopping. And I will tell you why, because that is what my column has been about.
All right, we will get into all that in just a minute. But first, the story that has taken over headlines all week. You would have to be under a rock to have missed it. But the big story of the week, the revelation by Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg that he was inadvertently added to a group chat by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz on the secure messaging app Signal, in which users who appeared to be officials in the Trump administration, including Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Vice President J.D. Vance, were discussing an impending military strike on Houthi rebels in Yemen. The National Security Council confirmed to The Atlantic that this conversation did appear to be genuine. The White House is kind of downplaying the incident. There's some dispute over whether this was classified information or not, whether these were war plans. But, this is not a national security show or a politics show. It's a tech show. So we want to talk about the tech at the center of this Signalgate scandal, and that is the messaging app Signal. Joanna, what should we know about this app?
I think the biggest lesson for everyone out there with this story, I mean, there are many, many lessons and many scary and, yes, humorous things to come out of this, but it's that no matter how secure the platform or app is that you are using, as security professionals usually say, the weakest link in anything is the human. And so that is obviously what happened here. Somebody made a mistake. They added somebody to this chat. And I guess I've also been thinking about the ways that, and Signal is one of the most safe and encrypted apps out there. Right. But of course, even Meredith Whitaker, who's in charge of that and runs it, will tell everyone that, of course, there are ways that this data could still get out. You still have to be careful, right? Screenshots are a big way, right? Mm-hmm. You may say something that message may disappear from servers that might be fully encrypted, but someone takes a screenshot and that message happened. So I've been thinking a lot about those places where humans are the weakest link.
Right. I mean, in terms of consumer, commercially available messaging apps, this is basically as secure as it gets. It's the gold standard end-to-end encryption. But there are many points of vulnerability. There's, kind of the social engineering attacks, which I understand Google reported that there was one by Russian hackers, a phishing attack on Ukrainian Signal accounts that, basically kind of spoofed so that Ukrainian accounts would accept these Russian devices as, devices on their account. And that's how they got access to Signal accounts. So there are, if you're, conveying state secrets or, business secrets that you need to keep very on, the most maximum security, there are things to keep in mind, I guess.
Yeah. I think, look, there's always a way. Phone calls could be recorded. Right. There are lots of ways, but I think just knowing that, hey, this might be the most secure app and people use it. Well, there's still ways that information can get out.
Right. All right. Well, now we want to turn to another story about sensitive data and the consumer genetic testing company 23andMe, which filed for bankruptcy Sunday, CEO and co-founder Anne Wojcicki also resigned. Back in 2017, she spoke to Marketplace host Kai Ryssdal. Let's take a listen.
The first and foremost decision, like if I ever have to make a decision tree, it's always the consumers first. We have no business if we can't protect the privacy of our customers.
Now, the company has said, as it moves into bankruptcy and pursues a buyer, it's not changing anything about how it stores and manages customer data. But I'm sure consumers have questions and concerns about this. I mean, what kind of recourse do they have to protect their data in a situation like this?
Yeah, I think the big feeling this week from any users of this is what happens next, right? And so
Right.
that's a big question mark, even for the founder of this company. They don't know. They went bankrupt. If you've been watching this company, if you've been reading the Wall Street Journal for actually the last couple of quarters, this isn't actually a surprise to you. And so maybe you should have deleted your information a few quarters ago, because what happened is that this news broke, and then everyone who ever used 23andMe was heading to the website trying to delete their data, and they ran into lots of technical issues because of the overload of those servers. People were waiting to get two-factor authentication information. They were waiting to load the page. So I believe they've recovered since. This was Monday, but it was kind of a disaster for those that wanted to get their information out.
Right. And there are options on the website to delete your data. I believe the California Attorney General has sent out some instructions for Californians wanting to do that. It is, something that consumers can do. But in terms of, if things should fall apart at the website and the company, as you said, this is a tenuous situation, there is no federal data privacy law. There are 20 states that have them, including California, which has a very strong one. But it is a little bit of a question mark.
It's a big question mark. And look, we want to hope and think that the intentions of the founder and that clip we played is that whoever they go to next, whoever they sell to, whoever bails this company out is going to protect that data. But we'd also know from the history of this company that hard time making money. The big thing here has really been that this was a one-shot situation. You'd send your information, you'd pay to have it analyzed, and then you kind of leave the company. And so data is always the key to making more money. I mean, that's the history of the internet.
All right. Well, now I want to talk about your recent column for the Wall Street Journal, all about how you have quit Google search in large part and transitioned to using AI chatbots like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Perplexity, Anthropic's Claude, which just this week enabled web searching. So, what are the benefits of this approach for search?
Yeah, I think this really, for me, goes back to the fact that we all have kind of been living in a hell of Google search for the last number of years. I mean, search for something and tell me that that is a good experience. It isn't. You've got sponsored links, you've got SEO junk, it's just a mess. And so
Right.
getting an answer is not simple through Google anymore. And now we have all these AI tools that give you a simple answer. And, is it always right? I talk about that in the column. No, it's important to fact check. I think where I was really interested in this column was what happens to the web? What happens to the open web if we're just getting
Right.
simple answers and we're not clicking to the sources of information? And it actually turned out that I found through the last month that I was still clicking to information. I was just getting there quicker to the trusted information. So everyone, I feel like, and this, where like you're looking for something and you click a link and then you go back, right? And then you click a link and you go back, and you're constantly going back to that Google homepage, that list of blue links, because you're trying to find the piece of information. Well, now, like, you get that piece of information quicker. Good example in the story is this 3D printer search I was doing. Okay, I now know the 2 or 3 top models I want to look for instead of just looking at a plastered wall of crap on Google. And then I can click to specific citations from the AI tool that gives me more information. So I find I'm clicking around less. So yes, traffic drops to some sites,
Right.
but I'm spending more time at the sites where the information is there. And Google, I spoke to one of Google's head of search product, and he said this is exactly what they see. And I really do believe it. I do believe that people still go to the web. They're just spending more time on certain pages, and they're not clicking around and sort of jumping and jumping and jumping.
Hmm.
We can all debate if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
Right. Because this whole annoying system of, SEO pages and sponsored links and ads. I mean, this is what kind of pays for content sites like the ones we work for. I mean, is there a conflict there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I said that in the piece. I said, like, I try to beg people to click the links that are
Yeah.
important, that have the trusted data, because this is still so important. We won't have a web if this happens, right? If all that data is
Mhm.
just being sucked up into answers, and then we don't know where it comes from. First of all, we don't click and give the money and the advertising revenue or the subscription revenue to these places. Um, so it's a tough situation. And look, if we look ahead, will ads come to AI? I'm
Exactly.
sure of it, right? I'm sure of it. And we'll probably be here in 10 years
Right.
yelling about the mess that is the AI tool, and here's a new thing. I mean,
Right.
this is the cyclical way.
Right. Because these chatbots are sort of early in their cycle, whereas search engines have been monetized to high heaven. Chatbots haven't really been monetized yet. What are they going to look like once you add in all the sponsored links and ads
That's
and all
right.
that stuff? Yeah.
That's right.
Are
And
there
a lot of the chatbots is maybe you pay, I pay. I pay
right.
for two of them right now, $20 a month to Claude, and I pay $20 to ChatGPT. It's my job, so I do that. But others out there might not want to pay, and there will have to be
Right.
some model to fund that. I mean, as we know, these AI searches are more expensive too.
Right. Yes. I think something like 10 times more expensive on the back end than a simple
Yep.
Google search, right?
Yep.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, something that has been a frustration for me using ChatGPT for search, it's excels with text, but I have found it a bit frustrating for things like image search. Like it just will not return images. This week they added image generation to
Yeah.
ChatGPT, but not sure if that's going to improve the kind of search function for
Yeah.
returning images. Is that something that some of these other chatbots are better with?
Yeah, it is. So Perplexity specifically, I think, is great here. As soon as you search for something, it's pulling up some of the images. I actually saw in ChatGPT the one example I mentioned in the story, but I did many, but was a 3D printer, and it created a
Mhm.
list. I said, what are the best 3D printers under $500 for a 7-year-old? And it came up with a list of 5, and it had the little thumbnails next to each of them.
Mm.
So yes, I would say, but Perplexity, I think, really excels here.
Hmm.
And I should also note, look, I pick on Google a lot, but Google is working on this AI mode for search.
Right.
And they are doing a lot there to do simple answers with links back, with images. So look, I think all of this is coming along, and I don't think we should obviously count Google out of this. This is the number one, 90% of the search market. People are still going to Google. They're just going to change what search looks like.
And what do you call it when if you're not Googling to search, what do we
Yeah,
call it? Chatting? I mean, that's just very general.
I know. AIing. Oh, these are bad.
Yeah.
These are real
All right.
bad. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We'll work on that. Joanna
Yeah.
Stern, she's a senior personal technology columnist at the Wall Street Journal. Thank you so much.
Always.
And thanks to all of you for joining us for Marketplace Tech Bytes Week in Review. Daniel Shin produced this episode. I'm Meghan McCarty, Carino. This is APM.